What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Week 9 recap on the Wake and Jake College Football Show. It was a pretty good weekend of college football. Nothing too crazy happened. No major upsets. Some good games. Just nothing that's going to make you go, "Wow, that was insane! Best weekend of college football ever." But it was still a very good weekend. Typical recap show. We're going to get into Thursday games as well, but Thursday, Friday, and then all the Saturday games. Not all of them, but you know what I mean. Then we'll get through my dead list, my top 25, my 5 faves from the weekend, and then finish off with, dude, are you high? But before we do any of that, let's get a little high. All right, let's start with Thursday night games. Well, the one Thursday night game that we're going to talk about. Syracuse at Pitt. Pitt wins 41-13, remains undefeated, and this game was over by halftime. Honestly, you could even argue it was over by the end of the first quarter, but by halftime, this game was over. Kyle McCord, my goodness, threw for over 300 yards. That's fine, I guess. That's cool. Threw 5 total interceptions. 3 of those were pick sixes. Pitt's defense scored more than their offense did, and honestly, their offense didn't have to do much at all to win that game. 2 of those 3 pick sixes came in the first quarter. By the end of the first quarter, it was 17-0, 21-0, 17-0. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Pitt never had to do much on offense. Defense, like I said, was responsible for more points than the offense. Syracuse, just an ugly, ugly game. They held the ball for most of the game because they just kept throwing pick sixes. Then they just have to get the ball right back and watch out for Pitt moving forward. They somehow are still undefeated. Friday night games, Louisville at Boston College. Absolute all-time collapse by Boston College. They were up 20-7 at halftime. Offense, for the most part, was rolling in that first half. They had a few drives that weren't great. They scored on 4 of their 7 drives. And then they had 4 of their first 7 drives. And then they had 6 straight drives that went 23 yards or less. Now, back up for a second. Those 7 drives, I never count drives at the end of the game or at the end of the half that are just kind of running out the clock. I do not count those as actual drives, just so you know. But they had 6 straight drives that went 23 yards or less. Not good. Not great. Can't finish out the game that way. Props to Louisville's defense. They've struggled all year against mobile quarterbacks, and for the most part, they kept Castellanos from destroying them with his legs. Now, he did have some nice throws to some wide open receivers because they were dead set on stopping the run, and a few play action passes did catch Louisville off guard, but they settled down, got right, and didn't let Castellanos destroy them with his legs. He still had 40-some yards rushing, but nothing deadly. Wasn't the leading rusher. Wasn't the reason they lost the game because they actually ended up winning the game. Louisville needed that. Both of these teams were looking for a good win. This was going to be a good win for whoever got it, and Louisville got it. Looks like they're looking up on the rest of the season. Boston College, it's been a few ugly weeks. Needed this one. Rutgers at USC. Rutgers 20, USC 42. This was a get-right game for USC. Rutgers has been struggling. They've been injured. They've had this thing with their offense where they put together good drives. They get into opponent territory. They'll even get down to the 30-yard line. Not quite red zone, but, not far enough away that you can punt. And then they just stall out and turn it over on downs, miss the field goal, whatever it is. And that stayed the same this week. It's just been this weird theme all season. They had 3 drives that ended at the USC 13, 30, and 32-yard line, and no points were scored on those drives. Now, don't get me wrong, they had other drives that actually got into the red zone and did score, but this is 3 drives that were up almost to the red zone or into the red zone, and you came away with 0 points on those drives. You can't do that, and believe it or not, Rutgers did not turn the ball over. They even had the ball for 36 minutes, which, do the math, that means USC only had it for 24, still scored 42 points. Uh, just so many issues with this Rutgers offense that needs to be fixed. You can't stall out like you did, turn it over on downs like that 3 times deep in USC territory. You didn't even turn the ball over, like I said, and you still lost by this much. USC's offense was absolutely rolling. Rutgers' defense is in trouble. That's supposed to be the strength of that team. Now, obviously, I get that there's been some injuries and whatnot, but it has been brutal. Miller Moss, 20 of 28, 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, just picked them apart. USC was never in danger of losing this game. Played a great bend, don't break defense. Rutgers started the season 4-0. They are now 4-4. And looking at the rest of their schedule, there is a chance that they don't make a bowl game. Now, I still think they'll make a bowl game. They just have to go 2-2 the rest of the year. But there is a chance that they don't make a bowl game. And some people, including myself, had somewhat high expectations for Rutgers going into the season. So this is a little disappointing. All right, let's get into Saturday's games. Start with the noon slate. Yikes, Ohio State. Nebraska comes into your house after you're coming off a bye week, so an extra week to prepare. You're pissed off because you lost to Oregon in a game that you could have won, and you almost lose to Nebraska, 21-17. Ohio State pulls out the win. They might be in trouble. They might. They lost their left tackle, Josh Simmons, for the year. And then their backup went down late in this game against Nebraska. That's your best backup tackle just went down. What if he is injured for a long time? This could hurt them later on in the season. Maybe not the rest of Indiana's kind of a tough game. Michigan's always tough. Penn State's going to be brutal. If Ohio State can get out of the regular season with only one loss, these offensive line injuries might hurt them come playoffs, unfortunately. And credit to Nebraska, they did keep the ball away from Ohio State's offense. I think Will Howard was like 13 for 16 for however many yards. I mean, he was efficient as hell, but they could not get the running game going. And that's concerning because they have Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. They should be, and Will Howard, they should be a 3-headed rushing attack that nobody should be able to stop. And they had 2.1 yards per carry in this game. Could not get anything going on the run game. Had to rely on the pass game. Now, lucky for them, the pass game was absolutely rolling. But Ohio State fans, if I were you, I'd be a little uncomfy for next week's game against Penn State because we'll get into them later. But if you can't run the ball, Penn State might have a good game. Notre Dame 51, Navy 14. I'm going to say something controversial. I will say this about Army when the time comes as well, because it's going to come. And I'm not anti-American. I was rooting for Navy. I just want to say that up front. I was rooting for Navy. But I am so glad that Navy finally lost, and we can stop pretending that Navy is good. I said it. I'm not a commie. Full-blooded American. Love this country. Was rooting for Navy. I'm glad they lost. People just talking, oh, Navy this, Navy that, they're undefeated. Now, yes, don't get me wrong. It's great that they're undefeated, and they're very good for their conference. And there's a chance that they win their conference. They're not good enough to beat Notre Dame. The fact that Notre Dame was only a 12.5-point favorite, I guess you got to give it to them because they're on the road and they're going against an undefeated team. But I'm so glad that Navy lost. They just got absolutely routed. They turned the ball over 6 times. It was never close. It never looked like a game. Notre Dame was never in danger of losing it. And now we just got to wait for Army. Just got to wait for Army to lose either before they play Notre Dame or when they go to play Notre Dame. They'll lose, and then we can finally say the same thing. Thank God Army finally lost. We can stop trying to pretend that Army's actually good. Good enough for their conference. Good enough to make the Army-Navy game exciting in a month or whenever that is. I'm so glad they finally lost. Washington 17, Indiana 31. I mean, guys, the wagon continues to roll. I told you they've been upgraded from a mini wagon. They are a full-blown wagon. Curtis Rourke's in or not in, doesn't matter. They still roll to a win. Now, Curtis Rourke is out. He was out, had surgery on his thumb. Originally, it was said that he was just going to be out 1 week, but had no idea further than that. Then it comes out that he had surgery on the thumb, and you think, well, surgery on your thumb, you're probably out for at least 2 weeks, maybe 3. That's a no-doubter. Indiana can survive without Rourke for maybe another game. Maybe. They can do it for the last game of the season against Purdue, and they could maybe do it their next game against Michigan State. But Michigan and Ohio State, you are going to want Curtis Rourke back. So right now, the injury does not concern me. I think the wagon continues to roll, even against Michigan State. But after Michigan State, if he is not healthy, then it starts to become a concern, at least to me. Now, the wagon definitely got off to a slow start in this one, but Will Rogers throwing a few interceptions, 2 of them to be exact, one a pick six, and the other one a very short field, gave Indiana a 14-0 lead, and from there, Indiana just ran the ball and held on to the lead. They ran the ball 52 times and threw it 19. Just found enough success, was able to just kind of run out the clock, run out the game, keep that lead, didn't give it up, and this was a defensive win for Indiana. The defense definitely won the game for them. Those 2 turnovers early in the game definitely changed everything. Take away those 14 points and it's a 17-17 game. Well, yeah, it's a 17-17 game and whole different ball game. But credit to the defense, credit to this wagon. It continues to roll, and I don't see it stopping until potentially Michigan or Ohio State. Oklahoma at Ole Miss. Oklahoma 14, Ole Miss 26. Oklahoma fires their offensive coordinator this week, and the offense stepped up in that first half and kind of came out firing. Jackson Arnold was the starter this week, led the offense on 3 long drives, 2 of which ended in touchdowns. They would have really liked to have seen that other one end in a touchdown. I think it went like 90-plus yards. Just couldn't quite capitalize. It might have been the first drive of the game, too. Just unfortunate. Would have liked to have seen that because Oklahoma went into halftime up 14-10. You have that third drive, and it's 21-10, and this is a different ball game. Like I said, offense came out firing. They were looking good. Gave Oklahoma some hope for the rest of the season, for next season even. And then the second half happened. 5 of their 7 drives in the second half went for less than 10 yards. Just turned right back into a pumpkin. Just went right back to what they were before. That first half was nothing. It was just a flash in the pan. I'm sorry, Oklahoma fans. That's got to hurt a little bit. You probably got your hopes up in that first half. Ole Miss really just stepped up in that second half. That defense just shut Oklahoma down, and Ole Miss offense really didn't have to do much to come away with the win. Like I said, they were down 14-10, won 26-14. Oklahoma just couldn't do anything that second half. Georgia Tech at Virginia Tech. Oh, Georgia Tech so badly wants Haynes King to be healthy. They really need him to. This offense is looking so bad without him. Virginia Tech wins 21-6. They used 2 different QBs in this game, and it was so ugly. They combined to be 21 for 48, which that's almost 44% completion percentage. Oof. That's like 20 percentage points less than what you would prefer it to be, at least. 260 yards, 2 interceptions. Just absolutely pitiful. And the run game couldn't even get going either. Managed less than 3 yards per carry. I said it before. I'll say it again. Haynes King is the heart and soul of that offense. If he's out, I'm out on Georgia Tech. So until he comes back, do not expect much from this Georgia Tech offense. UNC 41, Virginia 14. Remember when I thought I was going to have to put some respect on Virginia's name? That was, I don't know what I was thinking. That was a few weeks ago, and ever since I said I might have to start putting respect on their name, they have just lost every game since. What a wild time. I'm glad I didn't ever put respect on their name because I would have looked stupid as hell, and I probably would have been, dude, are you high, for the second time this year. But I didn't. I'm glad I didn't because Virginia deserves none of my respect. Arkansas 58, Mississippi State 25. Taylor Green. That's it. If you haven't seen it, 6 total touchdowns, and he was just making Mississippi State defenders look stupid. Oh my goodness. Lamar Jackson-esque out there. I recommend looking up the highlights from this game because, like I said, just insane stuff. If Taylor Green was on a good team and doing that stuff, he might be winning the Heisman. Just absolutely insane. Now, granted, it was against Mississippi State. Arkansas does have a good offense. Mississippi State has a shitty defense, but it was beautiful to watch. It was fun to watch. Go look up those highlights. You won't be disappointed. All right, let's get into the afternoon games. Minnesota Minute. Maryland 23, Minnesota 48. Just absolutely wow. Best game for the Gophers from start to finish this year. Best first half easily this year. I did not go back and look at last year, but I'm only going to imagine that both of these remain true through last year as well. Just an absolutely great game from start to finish. And Max Brosmer, wow. I said he was going to dink and dunk all over this Maryland defense, and while he did dink and dunk a few times, he also threw some shots, and they were beautiful. So many beautiful throws. Just even when Maryland had good coverage, just put the ball right where it needed to be, where only the receiver could get it. I don't want to overreact or anything, but Max Brosmer might have an NFL career. I already was thinking it before this game, and then after this game, and I know it was against a terrible pass defense, but he absolutely lit them up. I'm not saying he's going to be a high draft pick or that he's even going to get drafted, but I think he does get onto a team, as an undrafted free agent. And if he had a long career as a backup, if you told me right now Max Brosmer has an 8-9 year run as a backup, plays in a few games here and there, I'm not going to be shocked. If you tell me he just jumps around the NFL kind of like a Josh Dobbs type thing, I'm not going to be surprised at all. He has been a great pickup for the Gophers. I am so glad they got him. Such an upgrade over Calic Manis. And I was a huge Calic Manis supporter. I wanted him to do well. I wanted him to stay, but I'm so glad we got Brosmer. Over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, if I am going to nitpick one thing with this team, it is the offensive line and the run game. Other than a 51-yard run by Taylor, you take away that one 51-yard run, and this run game was atrocious. Just pitiful. Could not get anything going. Now, Maryland does have a top run defense in the country, so I guess we'll give them that. But the Gophers' strength is supposed to be the run game, and even against a good run defense, you should still do better than they did. Let's just put it that way. Defensively, again, if I'm going to nitpick, I would have liked to have seen some sacks. I always want to see more holding calls on Jaw Joyner, just because, as we all know, he's constantly getting held, but I don't need to ask for everything. I guess I'll start small, and I just would have liked to have seen some more sacks. But forcing 2 turnovers does kind of help make up for me wanting to see that. And Coy Parrish, guys, what a stud. Minnesota safety, if you are a young safety out there and Minnesota recruits you better go to Minnesota because they have studs every year at the safety position, and Coy Parrish is the next in line. Great win by Minnesota. It was a fun game to watch from start to finish. I was never worried that Minnesota was going to lose the game. There was no roller coaster of emotions. It's nice to have those once in a while. And guys, Minnesota's one game from being bowl eligible, one game from being the season over-under total, hitting the over there. And I think they can do it. You look at the rest of their schedule, they could finish the season with 3 more wins. You could argue 4, but I'm not going to get greedy. Penn State's really good. Illinois at Oregon. Hand up. I was wrong. I was very wrong. I couldn't have been more wrong. I sat here and I said how disrespectful it was to have a minus 21.5 point line for Oregon. I thought it was disrespectful to Illinois, and I was wrong. And I could not have been more wrong. Oregon absolutely dominated this game, and Illinois was never in this game at any point. Oregon 38, Illinois 9. Just, I was wrong. I was wrong. I thought we had to put some respect on Illinois' name, and I was wrong. Mizzou 0, Bama 34, and yes, they are now going to be Mizzou because they suck. They are overrated and they are bad. Bama's offense was really struggling in the first half of this game, but they're honestly just really lucky that Mizzou's offense is just doo-doo. Even with Cook in there, doo-doo. Now, Brady Cook last week hurt his ankle, went to the hospital, came back, went to the training facility, tested it out, decided it was strong enough, came back into the game, led a comeback, was running around like his ankle was never hurt, yada yada. Then you hear all week, questionable, doubtful, doubtful, doubtful. He's going to try to give it a go. And he was in a walking boot, I'm pretty sure, on Friday. Maybe it was Thursday. Thursday or Friday, he was in a walking boot. So you hear that he's going to give it a go, and you're like, wow, how great is it going to be? And I mean, it wasn't great. But then in the game, smacks his hand on the helmet of an Alabama player as he's throwing the ball, and just like that, out the rest of the game. And Drew Pine has to come in, and I think all of you can guess how that went, because Drew Pine is the backup quarterback. He is in the same recruiting class as Brady Cook, and somehow, and this guy's been at Notre Dame, was recruited to Notre Dame, played there, played at Arizona State, finally transferred to Mizzou, and he has been booty cheeks. I saw a tweet, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, I mean, makes sense. He's got to have dirt on someone, whether it's Eli Drinkwitz, somebody on the coaching staff, I don't know. To be the backup quarterback and be that bad, either Drinkwitz has just failed to get a deep quarterback room, or he's got dirt on somebody, because he was awful. 6 of 12, 42 yards, 3 interceptions. And how did he ever get recruited to Notre Dame? Just insane. I know before this game I was a little worried that Mizzou was going to be Ole Miss this year from last year. But nope, I don't think so. I think we're set, especially with Brady Cook getting injured. Also, I just want to say, if he went to the hospital because his ankle injury was so bad and then he comes back and he's no longer limping and he's just sprinting around, whatever, I want to know what they gave him, and I want some of it. But the overrated train for Mizzou, still full steam ahead. Texas Tech 34, TCU 35. I told you, very little defense was going to be played in this game. Now, and I was right, 34 to 35. That's, I mean, technically a shootout. The over hit. I was very high on the over, as you know from my 5 faves. Absolutely fun game to watch. Texas Tech did their darndest to keep the ball away from TCU. They knew that their defense was not going to be able to stop TCU, so they tried their darndest. But in the end, it didn't matter. They had 37-plus minutes of time of possession, and they ran the ball 50 times. But TCU still found a way. Texas Tech was up 31-14 with less than 5 minutes in the third quarter. And you kind of thought, damn, Texas Tech's really running this game. Really thought TCU would do more. And then all of a sudden, boom, TCU just storms back and wins the game. Now, TCU would have won this game a lot easier and by a lot more if they just hadn't turned the ball over 3 times or could play defense. But if they hadn't turned the ball over 3 times, this game would have been completely different. They wouldn't have had to storm from so far behind, and they probably would have won by more than just a point. But I said it before and I'll say it again, always bet the over for these 2 teams. Well, I've been saying it about TCU, but Texas Tech as well. Always bet the over. Texas 27, Vandy 24. Vandy, man, they are feisty. They drag you down to their level, and they beat you with experience. And I told you, if you want to beat this Vandy team, you got to do 2 things. You got to stop them on third down, and you got to win the time of possession. And Texas did both. The only thing that Texas did to pretty much fuck up this game, Texas should have won this game by a lot more. Honestly, it should not have been a 3-point game. It should have probably been a 14 to 21-point game. But Texas turned the ball over twice, and Vandy capitalized on both turnovers with short fields and came away with 14 points. Again, take away those 2 turnovers, even if Texas did nothing on those drives, and we're looking at 27-10. Those 14 points made this way closer than it needed to be. Clean up those turnovers, honestly. Like I said, whole different ball game. Vandy is still a very good team. Like I said, they'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience, but Texas comes away with the win. BYU 37, UCF 24. I mean, the disrespect on BYU. Undefeated and on the road at a 3-4 UCF, who is officially starting a new quarterback. KJ Jefferson's been benched. They have struggled in the passing game. It's just been kind of an ugly season, and BYU was underdogs. Are you kidding me? Just absolutely insane. And they showed Vegas and everybody that do not disrespect us like that. They were up 17-0 midway through the second quarter, and they never looked back. 34-10 going into the fourth. You know, UCF scored a couple points, scored a couple touchdowns in that fourth quarter to make it a lot closer. But absolute domination by BYU's offense. Just so many long drives that ended in points. And even, you know what, credit to BYU's defense as well. You went into the fourth quarter up 34-10. You let up some garbage time touchdowns, big whoop. You still won by 13. And you look at the rest of the schedule for BYU, and they have a real shot to go 11-1 and make the playoffs. So, and play for the Big 12 championship game, which, I'm going to be honest, nobody probably saw coming. All right, let's get into the evening games, but before we do that, let's take a quick smoke break. All right, let's get into the evening games. Florida State at Miami. I mean, Florida State's just given up. We know that, right? Just sad. Just so sad to go from what they were last year to this. Miami 36, Florida State 14. And I mean, this is what we expected. Not before the season, but like going into this week, this is kind of what we expected. Maybe Miami scores a few more points, we thought, but when you do look at the game, Miami scored on 7 of their 8 drives, so it's not like the offense struggled at any point. 7, again, I don't count end of half and end of game drives that are for no reason other than to run out the clock. Scored on 7 of 8 meaningful drives. Offense was efficient as hell. Defense was great. Outside of basically one drive, Florida State couldn't do anything. And I do not count, I know they had 2 scoring drives. I do not count that second one because it was in garbage time. Very late in the game. Miami was already up. It was either 36-7 or 29-7. Either way, didn't matter. This Miami team, they really didn't do much. They didn't have to do much, just had to be efficient. This Florida State team has just given up. West Virginia 31, Arizona 26. West Virginia almost fudged this one up. They were up 24-7 with less than 2 minutes in the third, and Arizona kind of started to storm back. Still overrated, though. Couldn't quite get there. They're still an overrated team. But I did call it. I said that this is a game because West Virginia's pass defense is just terrible. I said this is a game that McMillan could go off, just put up stupid numbers, and that's exactly what he did. Touchdown numbers could have been better, but 10 catches, 202 yards, and 1 touchdown. And they even tried to do like a whole reverse to him. He throws it to Fafita and for a touchdown, and honestly, they almost did it. Fafita just wide open, could just walk into the end zone, and he just straight up dropped it. So McMillan almost had a passing touchdown as well, which would have been insane. But I've been saying it all year. Fafita, he just relies on McMillan. That's the only person he likes to throw to, and maybe it's the only person he can throw to because maybe the other receivers are really just that trash. But in this game, Fafita had 21 completions, 10 of those 21 to McMillan. He also had 294 yards passing, 202 of those yards were to McMillan. McMillan is, and last night was, this offense, and the only thing that could stop him, which is who did, is West Virginia's offense. West Virginia just kept the ball away from Arizona, forcing them to try to come from behind. Well, like I said, it kind of worked because they made a run at the end there, but credit to West Virginia's offense for keeping Arizona's offense on the sidelines, honestly. Penn State 28, Wisconsin 13. This game got scary for Penn State fans. Drew Aller gets hurt right before halftime, has a hissy fit at a fan, and then is ruled out the rest of the game. You're down 10-7. You kind of had struggled to move the ball, or not move the ball, but capitalize as well. Defense had played good, but Drew Aller goes out. What are you going to do? And Penn State played well the rest of the game. They played a great second half. Defensively, offensively, they ran the ball a lot. When they had to throw, they were efficient. They kept Wisconsin's offense on the sideline, not that they could do much anyways. Just another game where Penn State has to face some adversity, and they come through. It happened against USC. Again, people were saying that this was a terrible win for them. They should never have had to come from behind. They're a trash team. They don't deserve to be ranked or undefeated or whatever it is. And I thought it was a good win. I saw it as you were behind. You were destined to lose that game, and you stormed back and won in overtime. I saw it as a positive. Then you go on a bye week. You get rested. You get healthy. You have extra time to game plan for this Wisconsin team. And then they come out tough, and your starting quarterback, your star quarterback, gets hurt. How do you respond? And they responded perfectly. Watch out for Penn State, guys. Just watch out. Wisconsin had no answers for the backup quarterback now. Obviously, now that they have some film on him, other teams are going to be a little more prepared. It's hard to be prepared for a quarterback that there's no tape on, and that just gets thrown in when you didn't expect to see them play. And don't get me wrong, I know there's already some tape out there. I get that they put him in some packages, but you know what I mean. A full game where he's actually taking most of the snaps. Tawi Walker has been on a tear in recent weeks, but he was held to 59 yards and 2.7 yards per carry. Penn State's defense is so good, guys. And Ohio State fans, I would be nervous going up against Penn State next weekend, even if they don't have Drew Aller back. This defense is so good. Again, people have been shitting on Penn State. I think these last two wins have been so good for them. And I think Penn State is a real danger to make the playoffs and even win a game or two. LSU 23, Texas A&M 38. I mean, what yuck. Garrett Nussmeier, yuck. LSU was absolutely dominating this first half. They were up like 17-7 or some shit like that. I think it was 17-7. And then all of a sudden, Garrett Nussmeier just went into halftime and forgot how to play quarterback. I don't know what he was doing in that second half, but he made some absolutely terrible throws and threw 3 interceptions. And the one thing LSU had going for them was their defense. They were playing well on defense, and Connor Wegman was playing absolutely terrible, but finally got benched in the third quarter. Marcel Reed came into the game and completely took over. LSU had no response to him coming into the game. He was in for 5 drives, something like that, and scored on every single one, whether it was a field goal or a touchdown. He led them on a scoring drive every single time he started the drive. When he took over, A&M had 7 points. When they finished the game, they had 38, and he came in the third quarter. That's how electric he was. He was on the field for 26 plays. They only threw 2 passes in those 26 plays. They just ran it all over LSU. Marcel Reed had 9 carries, 62 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Just great win for Texas A&M. Marcel Reed's got to be the starter moving forward, and LSU, another collapse by Brian Kelly and this team, and Garrett Nussmeier. Just ugly, ugly game. Kansas 27, Kansas State 29. This was a great game. Evenly matched game, fun to watch, rivalry game, back and forth. If you didn't watch this game, go and you have the ability to go back and watch it, do it because it was fun. And this game really, it boils down to, you could argue, just two plays. Kansas State kicks the ball off. Kansas player goes to receive the kickoff and steps out of bounds at the 1 yard line. He almost won Dude Are You High. We'll get into Dude Are You High later. This guy almost won it. I don't even remember who it was. Stepped out of bounds at the 1. Kansas has the worst field position possible. Try to give themselves a little space. Kansas State stuffs them for a safety. Go up 2 points. Kansas State gets the ball back. Yada, yada. We go from there. Ending score, 29-27. Kansas State won by 2 points. Those 2 points came on that safety because that dumbass stepped out of bounds at the 1 yard line. Kansas, two plays completely changed that game. Now, obviously, with any game, you can look back and there's probably 15 plays that completely changed the game on either side. But those two seem to be the most important to just completely fucking them over in this game. But like I said, great game, fun to watch. Definitely go back and watch that one if you can. SMU 28, Duke 27 in overtime. I mean, Duke, come on, guys. There is no reason you guys should have lost this game. There's no way. I have no idea how you did not win this game. I mean, I do, because you missed a field goal. You had another one blocked. Either one of those would have won this game. But SMU turned the ball over 6 times. And somehow they got to go to overtime to win it. Now, Duke scored a touchdown second. They tried to go for 2 and the win and failed. And SMU fans could breathe a sigh of relief because, wow, they did not deserve to win that game. I've been on the SMU bandwagon all year, and I didn't think they deserved to win, but I'm glad they did. Rhett Lashley even said so as much on his immediate post-game interview, stating that they didn't deserve to win. But, yeah, Duke, that one's got to hurt. Props to SMU. A win is a win, but Duke, that's got to hurt a lot. Cincinnati 23, Colorado 34. Props to you, Colorado. Your defense played pretty well. Offensive line didn't play bad either, only allowed 1 sack. And you were able to establish a rushing attack, which doesn't happen often. And you ran it more than you threw it, which, again, you can't say very often. So props to Colorado. This was a very good win. No shocker, Shedeur was lights out, 25-30, 323 and 2 touchdowns. Can't be surprised there. Travis Hunter, though, him being the talk as being the leading candidate for the Heisman, that's back. Because he finished with 9 catches, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, and had 7 passes defended on defense. Just great game. It's insane what he's doing. It's fun to watch. He might be atop the Heisman leaderboard now. But with this win, Colorado officially makes a bowl game, and they are actually in the running for the Big 12 championship game right now, which good for them. Their over-under win total was set at 5.5. I had them going 7-5. They've hit that already. They're 6-2, and you look at the rest of their schedule, they should exceed my prediction even of 7-5. They play Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. I mean, at worst, they should win at least half those games, if not all of them. Colorado has a real chance to go 10-2. Realistically, 8-4, 9-3. But 10-2 is out there. It is a possibility. All right, let's get into my top 25. I mean, some people are probably going to disagree with a little bit of this, but I don't care. I don't care. I'm trying to give some teams some more love for the fact that they're undefeated. I don't care. I got Oregon 1, Penn State 2, Miami 3, which people might disagree with, and Georgia 4. I have Ohio State at 5, Indiana jumping all the way up to 6, Tennessee staying at 7, Clemson 8. I do have Texas dropping to 9. Again, people can argue that if they want. Indiana's undefeated. I'm trying to give them some love. Iowa State at 10, Pitt at 11, BYU at 12. Again, trying to give some undefeated some love there. Notre Dame at 13, Bama 14, Texas A&M 15, LSU 16. I have them dropping all the way to 16. You could argue further, but I'm going to keep them at 16. I got Kansas State at 17, SMU at 18, Boise State at 19. I have Washington State cracking the top 25. Now you could argue maybe they shouldn't be jumping up this high their first weekend in, but I have them jumping up all the way to 20. Actually, it might have been earlier in the season, but regardless, I have them jumping all the way up to 20. I got Army going up to 21, Colorado hopping in at 22, Arizona State at 23, and here's where I'm trying to show some teams some love. South Carolina 24. They got a great defense. Their offense, like I said, if they had Spencer Rattler as their quarterback this year, they would be a much better team. They probably would have won a couple games that they've lost here. And then I got Minnesota coming in at 25. Hate it all you want. They're 5-3. They're on a roll. They have a chance to finish 9-3 this year. More realistically, 8-4. Minnesota coming in at 25. Others receiving votes. I got Navy because they did lose to a top team. I got Illinois, UNLV, Tulane, Mizzou, Syracuse, but not a lot of. You could argue from like 20. Maybe even 19 back, you can argue any team in there, and I probably wouldn't argue any of them except for Mizzou. Dead list, few updates to that. Washington officially added. Mizzou also has been added. Even though they won this week, Louisville and Bama still on dead watch because Bama loses a game and they're done for. And there's a couple of declared dead teams that did pull off a win this week, but they're still pretty dead. All right. My 5 faves. I would just like to say, betting this weekend, I went 18-10. I have been killing it on my overall bets. My 5 faves I always pick the wrong 5, and I'm sorry about it. I'm trying to be better. Positive attitude, winning mindsets. We're turning this around because I went 3-2 this weekend, with my 5 faves at least. 22-29 overall, still down 9 units. Positive attitude, winning mindset. We're turning this around, 1 weekend at a time, 3-2. That's a winning weekend. Turning the ship around. The parlay also hit, so that on the year is 2-7, still down 2 units, but nail 1 more of those and. We could be looking at plus money there. Positive attitude, winning mindset. We're turning this thing around. All right, time for my favorite segment. Dude, are you high? If you were watching the Texas A&M LSU game, you may have seen LSU attempt 3 field goals, I believe. 2 of them they just absolutely shanked, missed, wasn't even close, and the third one just absolutely botched. Never even got it off. LSU hits all those field goals, by the way. All 3 of those field goals, completely different ball game. They maybe even steal some of that momentum that they lost to Texas A&M once Marcel Reed came in, but if you saw it, the holder, first of all, he's just staring at his kicker like he's in love with him, just waiting for him to give the signal, I guess. I don't know. And he's not even looking, and the snapper snaps the ball straight into his chest. And this motherfucker, it hits him, and it bounces away, and it rolls away, and he just stares at it and just looks defeated for a second. You could see it, and then it snaps. He's like, oh, I got to go after the ball. Dude, are you high? Are you high? First of all, I get why you're looking at the kicker. Yes, the snapper probably shouldn't have snapped it when they did. Hits you right in the chest, and then you just look at the ball, and you could see the annoyance across his face. He just went, and then went after the ball. Well, I'm not saying you would have gotten there. The kicker got there first. He was closest. I mean, that probably would have happened anyways, but you didn't even, it took you a second to even react to that. Overall, funny play. Funny to watch. And honestly, you could argue, I guess, the long snapper, dude, are you high? Why are you snapping the ball then? But the visual is all on the holder, the punter, Peyton Todd. Dude, are you high? Thank y'all for joining me. It was a fun weekend of football. Like I said, no crazy upsets, but just some really solid games. And I will talk to you guys on Friday morning to preview Week 10.